Hey guys, welcome to the Being Beautifully Honest channel and podcast. If you are on the podcast platforms, please hit that subscribe button. And if you are on YouTube, thank you so much for subscribing as well as hitting that like button while you're at it. It's like walking into the room and hitting that light switch. Let's just go ahead and brighten up the place and let's get into this podversation. So as you know, Shah of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, she was not found guilty, but pled guilty. She was going to be on trial, and she just decided to give in and plead guilty because all of her co-defendants / co-conspirators, they pled guilty. So even though she was announcing how innocent she was on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, she decided to just go ahead and give in and say, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and do like the others did. And so now she is pleading for a lenient sentence, which she's up for sentencing come the beginning of the year. She was going to be due for sentencing in November, but they pushed the sentencing date back to January. And I don't believe they did it for her sake. I just believe it was just because of other extenuating factors, as well as the holidays and all of that hoopla, and said, you know what, we'll just go ahead, let her spend the holidays with her family, and then we'll just start fresh at the beginning of the year. So she initially came out, was pleading for leniency in this fraud sentencing, and then around the same time, it was reported that a lot of the things that were confiscated from her home for the sake of selling for restitution for the injured parties that the Southern District of New York was pursuing charges against her for getting them some money, for the sake of all that they lost. A lot of it is fraudulent. It's fake stuff. Fake handbags and fake clothing and just a number of different things that were reported, right? And so it's kind of crazy because I won't even say it's that surprising, because as much as she was just flossing and showcasing how much she had, and not just even the stuff that she had, but the people that she had on her team, the personal assistants and makeup artists and stylists and all of these different things. And a lot of people were asking, why does she need this big team? Like, what is it that she actually even does? Okay? Like, that's what a lot of people were wondering in the grand scheme of things. When they saw her living the life that she was living, it just didn't even really make sense. Why does this woman in Salt Lake City, who we still don't really know what she does for a living, has all of these personal assistants? So the story from Reality T reads, now the Shah sentencing date is less than a month away. It looks like the reality of her ongoing legal issues is starting to set in. After pleading guilty back in the summer to one count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, Jen faces between 11 and 14 years in federal prison. However, she's asked the judge overseeing her case for a lighter sentence of 3 years. CNN reported that in a new letter written to the judge, she is revealing more than ever before. It says, quote, the terrible business decisions I made and professional relationships I developed stemmed from some personal painful experiences that I was going through in my life, Jen wrote in a letter to the judge. Her letter was titled, How I Got Involved in the Situation, ? It sounds like Jen is starting to take accountability for her actions here. When she pleaded guilty, she admitted to defrauding the elderly and admitted it was wrong. But throughout her time on the show, she's maintained her innocence. Every time she releases more and more info regarding her case, it seems like it's ending with her confessing to more and more. The charges against her and the case itself is disgusting. and this is what the story is reading. It says, I truly believe Jen will get whatever she deserves. It's upsetting that she's using her personal painful experiences to justify stealing from the elderly. Some of the victims didn't even own a computer, let alone know how to work one. The Hulu documentary detailed the early stages of her case and features actual victims talking about how these telemarketing schemes have scammed them out of tens of thousands of dollars. There's audio of the ringleader telling his employee to run $15,000 on someone's credit card just for the fun of it. How disgusting. Yes, I'm saddened for Jen and the reality she's facing right now, but where was her regard for the people she hurt? Jen's defense attorneys asserted that Jen wasn't a kingpin of the scheme. The attorneys also said that because she never had direct contact with the victims, her sentence should be lower. Prosecutors accused Jen of generating the leads for the scam. Jen's lawyers told the court, just as Shah had never been a housewife, little else is real about her persona and caricature as portrayed by the editors of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. This is quite funny to me because they're representing the same woman who has done live interviews where she has admitted to being exactly that girl. Okay, sure, The Real Housewives is an edited show. We know that. We expect that. But Jen has sat in interview chairs and boasted about spending $82,000 on a party at the rented Shah chalet. At this point, I've already started closing the jenshah chapter in my Real Housewives history book. There's no need for her to be there anymore. Sure, she's entertaining TV sometimes, but for the most part, I've never really loved her on the show. I think she puts it on for the camera rather than just being herself, and it shows. Jen submitted 30 letters of support to the judge from her family and friends. Out of those 30, none came from any cast members of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. She asked the judge to serve her sentence in Bryan, Texas. Her sentencing will occur on January 6th, 2023. And so, as she's seeking this more lenient sentence, and I guess I'm assuming a more lenient prison, because it's kind of ironic that she's naming a specific city and state where she wants to serve her time. The prosecutors, they're seeking at least 10 years in prison. So the story from Deadline reads, Jen Shah, one of the stars of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, might get locked up in prison for a whole decade in the wire fraud case she pled guilty to if the U.S. government gets what it has requested. The Bravo celebrity is expected to get sentenced on January 6th from running a telemarketing scheme where she targeted seniors in a new filing by the feds that NBC News shared. They called Jen Shah the most culpable person charged in this case and an integral leader of a wide-ranging telemarketing fraud scheme that victimized thousands of innocent people. According to the docs, Shah's team requested her sentence to be only 3 years. Shah had maintained she was innocent of all the charges brought up against her, a storyline that played out as part of the second season of the Bravo reality series. Throughout season 3, Shah continued to claim she was innocent of everything she was being accused of. However, after filming had wrapped, she made a court appearance and changed her plea to guilty. Her tagline in the current season says that the only thing she is guilty of is being Shah-mazing. The feds also noted Shah's behavior after her arrest, stating that she engaged in a years-long, comprehensive effort to hide her continued role in the scheme and tried profiting from the scandal by selling Justice for Jen merchandise. Ahead of her sentencing, Shah opted to skip the season 3 reunion, making a statement on social media alleging that out of respect for the courts and a standing judicial order, I would not be in a position to discuss anything related to my legal case or sentencing. Shah added that she would not be attending the reunion and would focus on the most important thing in my life, my family. And here's the thing. I was not surprised that they named some things that she did on the show as to why they're seeking a harsher sentence for her, because I felt too that it was like a slap in the face of the victims for her to try to profit off of this situation by selling Justice for Jen merchandise, which, I mean, some people may say, oh, well, she was really doing this so that she could try to get restitution for the victims. But if she was doing that before she pled guilty, then that really doesn't make any sense. Because in actuality, if at the time you did not plead guilty and you were going to be going through a trial and you created Justice for Jen merchandise, Justice for Jen actually was meaning that you would win in the situation and be found not guilty on all charges, and you would be making the money from that so that you could pay your own legal fees as well as live. And then also saying the only thing that I'm guilty of is being Shah amazing, like that was her tagline. I felt like that was ridiculous for her to be doing as well. And throughout the show, she continued to maintain her innocence. She only pled guilty after everything had wrapped up. So I don't know if her attorney said, you know what, it's not looking good for you. This is what I would recommend to you at this time. And also to save you some legal fees on the other flip side of things, just go ahead and plead. That's what I'm thinking happened. But again, I'm just assuming these things. I don't know for sure. But she really had a lot of nerve. And if the Chrisleys got sentenced to 7 years and 16 years, I don't see her getting 3 years. I really don't. I do see her getting at least 10. I don't know how federal time works. I don't know how any time works. Praise God, I don't. But I'm just saying, I don't see her getting sentenced to anything less than 10 years in prison. And her sense of arrogance is just really annoying and can be very sickening, especially due to the fact that her crimes are against people, and older people, might I add. It's not against the government. It's not against the IRS. It's not against a bank. It's not against like some big time corporation that some people may say, well, you know what? It wasn't right, but I get it. No one is going to feel sorry for her in a situation where it's like you did this against elderly people and you took advantage of them. And no, you may not have been on the phone with these people, but that doesn't absolve her of what happened. She was, I believe, the ringleader in the situation, and she was trying to pawn it off on other people. But I believe that she was the ringleader in the situation, because from the information that I heard about before, based on her previous career, it sounds like she was the ringleader. I'm not saying she was the only one at the top, but I don't see her getting off. I don't see her getting off easy. And that's sad, because I feel for her family. I feel for her sons and her mother. Like, her mother signed over her home, I believe, as restitution for her to be out on bail, I believe. And she was just proclaiming to her mom how innocent she was, and her mom was like, this is all I have, but I'm willing to do this for you because you're my daughter. And it's really sad. I don't know how much knowledge her husband had of the situation, because from what I've heard, he used to be an attorney, and he wrote a letter to the judge begging for leniency for his wife. He says in a letter, Jen has never been arrested or detained for any crime. My wife's current legal predicament was caused by a confluence of events that came together at various points, which caused her to spiral out of control. Which I don't get that. But he says, because of my absence, I was not able to see how badly my wife was suffering. As I think about it now, I saw her spending more time in our bedroom alone. She often fell asleep in our children's bed waiting for me to come home. She would constantly tell me that she feels so alone. Look, I'm not here to advocate for anyone using substances or doing things to harm themselves to alleviate whatever they're feeling on the inside that they may be going through. But most people, that's kind of what they do. They don't like create companies and schemes to defraud elderly people because of how they're suffering from the absence of their spouse. Like, that is absolutely insane to me. I don't get that. And I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole right now because I don't want to make this a very long conversation. But you guys let me know what you think about this, because with them reporting that they found all of these fraudulent pieces of clothing and handbags in her home, and the fact that she was living it up and just saying how innocent she was, but yet now she's wanting to have a lenient sentence while they're asking for at least 10 years. I don't think she's going to get what she's asking for, but you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing, and until the next time, this is Beth, and I'm just being beautifully honest.